And then tip number 3, this is where most people slip up, especially if they've never grown carrots before. You got to keep the soil. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having an awesome day. It is Thursday, October 5th here in South Georgia, and that means it's time to plant some carrots. So in today's video, I'm going to give you 3 really good tips for planting carrots, and then we're going to get 3 different varieties planted here in the raised bed garden. But before we plant our carrots, I figured I'd give you all an update on some of the things we have growing here in the raised beds. So we've got a 3rd planting of summer squash here. This Tempest variety, we've been getting some decent squash harvest off these, but the bugs have gotten really bad in the last few days. You can see they're turning some of those leaves into skeletons there. I don't think I'm gonna fight the bugs too hard here because I've got a bunch of cool season transplants in the greenhouse we can put in this bed. So we're just going to enjoy the squash we get out of here, and then we'll plant something else. And then right here we have some flash collard plants that have made an epic comeback. This is the first time I've ever been able to keep a collard plant in the ground for an entire year. So these were planted last October 2022. They looked terrible throughout the summer, but they never bolted. Now that things have cooled off a little bit, hey, we've got collards to eat here. So this is pretty cool. I may plant some more collards in here, a new round, just in case something happens to these. But man, I'm tickled to have had these in the ground for so long. These collard trees are a good 4.5, 5 foot tall. Then we've got our Louisiana evergreen shallots, which are just growing like weeds. We need to split these up and spread them out pretty soon. Our Egyptian walking onions are growing pretty well, starting to get some of those gaps filled in there. Not all of these popped or sprouted at the same time, but it looks like we are eventually going to get a nice full bed here. And then these potato onions are just growing ridiculously fast. I feel like we just planted these, and you can see they're already starting to multiply. I think every single one we planted came up. Got a nice full bed of perennial onions there. And then a few days ago, I finally received all those other varieties of perennial onions that I ordered. They're hanging out in the greenhouse right now. We're gonna get those planted soon and show you all the different neat varieties we've got. Hopefully we'll do that on a video later this week. And then the last thing I wanted to show you before we plant our carrots are these beautiful Savannah mustard greens here. Isn't that pretty? A nice bed full of greens. We could harvest these right now as baby mustard greens, but I think I'm gonna let them get a little bit bigger before I harvest them. That way we ensure we've got a nice big pot full of greens. So that's what's going on in the raised beds right now. Still got a lot more to plant in here, a lot more spaces to fill in. But now let's talk about carrots. You may recall several weeks ago, we did a big clean out here in the raised bed garden, and we got some of these round raised beds ready to plant carrots as soon as the weather cooled off. So in case you missed that video, just a quick little recap of what we did here for these 3 round raised beds. We had some marigolds growing in 2 of them, and then nothing growing in 1 of them. We cut those marigolds at soil level, got the plant debris out of here, removed our little spider irrigation system, added some mushroom compost, some coop grow fertilizer, and some wood chip compost, got it smoothed out. And I have been watering these beds regularly the last couple weeks just to keep everything nice and moist and keep all my biology active until we're ready to plant carrots today. Now, I always get a little bit nervous when I say stuff like this, but carrots are one of those veggies that we always do well with. I can't ever remember a time where we got skunked on carrots. Now, last year we did have some issues because the Arctic blast came in and basically just leveled our carrots. We had some nice lush green growth, and it just killed it back to the ground. They did regrow, and we did end up getting a pretty decent harvest. Not my best ever harvest, but a pretty decent harvest. That was a once in every 20 years kind of situation, so I expect this year to be much better. So we've grown a bunch of different carrot varieties over the years, a lot of different types of orange carrots we've tried, several types of purple carrots, and several types of yellow carrots. And I finally kind of settled in on 3 varieties I really like. They may not be everybody's favorite, but they're my favorite, and I've got them right here. So the orange carrot that I really like is called Miami. There's another one called Bolero that I really like as well, but Miami nudges it just a little bit in my opinion. So Miami is the one we'll be planting. Then our yellow carrot is called Yellowstone. Really solid performing yellow carrot. And then the purple carrot we like is called Dragon. I can't remember all the different names of the purple carrots we've grown over the years. Some of them are really hairy and have a lot of roots on them, and they're just really hard to clean. This dragon carrot isn't that bad about that, and usually gives us some really nice looking carrots. I think this one has an orange inside and a purple outside. Now, if you're new to growing carrots or haven't grown a lot of different varieties or colors, I would warn you about red carrots. You notice we're not growing any red carrots. I have tried to grow red carrots several times and they always underperformed. I don't know if that's our climate or that's just a red carrot thing, but I thought I'd mention that. Yes, they look really pretty. They look like they'd be fun to grow, but from my experience, they'll always disappoint you. So now let's talk about our top 3 carrot planting tips. Now, we've done a lot of carrot videos in the past, some more detailed than others. For this video, I thought we'd keep it simple with 3 really good tips, and then we'll demonstrate some of those tips when we plant our carrots in a minute. So here we go. Tip number 1, you got to make sure your soil temperature is right. And this specifically applies to planting carrots in the fall for overwintering like we do. So ideally you want your soil temp in the 70s. Now, I haven't stuck a probe in those raised beds to see what my soil temp is, but I know if we're getting highs in the low to mid 80s and lows in the low 60s at night, that our soil temp should be in the 70s. We're supposed to get even cooler this weekend, so it should be perfect time for planting carrots. Number 2, you got to plant them really thick. I don't think I've ever planted carrots, seen them sprout, and thought, man, I might have planted those too thick. There's really no such thing as planting them too thick, in my opinion. They'll move each other out the way. We don't thin ours. We like to plant them really thick. That's why when I buy carrot seeds, I always buy at least 1,000 or 2,000 seeds. A little pack of 100 carrot seeds is not going to do a whole lot for you unless all you're planting is a little bitty pot. So we're going to plant most of these packets in each of those raised beds because we like to plant them super thick. Now, it is important to note that planting really thick like that will give you variable carrot sizes. You'll get some smaller carrots, some bigger carrots. That's just the way it goes. If you want all equally sized carrots, then maybe you should take a little more time with your planting and try to space things out more evenly. But we just like to scatter our seeds. We take the little carrots, we take the big carrots, we take whatever we get. And then tip number 3, this is where most people slip up, especially if they've never grown carrots before. You got to keep the soil moist for 7 to 10 days after planting. Carrots can take up to 2 weeks to germinate sometimes, and unlike, say, corn or beans where you can just water them in one good time and then in a few days they'll sprout, you got to keep that seed bed moist, consistently moist, for 7 to 10 days. I overhead water mine every day, sometimes twice a day after planting, to make sure I get good germination. Yeah, we'll be running the drip system to water some of the other beds in this plot, but I also water them by hand because I don't never want that seed bed to dry out while those carrots are trying to germinate. And it's not a terrible idea, if you can, to kind of pre-moisten your beds before planting. So we ran the drip in here all night last night. I had some stuff in here that needed some water, but I also wanted to get these beds nice and soaked because I knew we were going to be planting carrots today. So for these round raised beds here, instead of planting our carrots in rows, we're just going to scatter seeds over the entire bed and then we'll cover them up. Because we've already got this soil ready, there's not a whole lot to do here. Got a few little weeds we need to pluck out of there. I am going to put some fresh new staples down just to kind of hold my drip lines in place, get those equally spaced along the bed here. Now that we've got all our drip lines held down with the staples, I'm going to take my little scratcher tool here and I'm just going to lightly kind of scratch the top of this soil here, just to kind of break up that crust a little bit. No need to get real deep here, just a light little scratching. Alright, now we're ready to plant. I think we're going to put orange carrots in this bed. So I got my Miami carrot seed packet here. I've got 2,000 seeds. I don't know if we'll use them all, but I know we should have enough. We're just going to pour some out here. And then I just like to grab a pinch of them and just kind of start sprinkling them out on the soil here. Just try to get somewhat even distribution. Like I said, it's real hard to plant these things too thick. Alright, so we got all our seeds scattered there. Since we didn't make a furrow and plant these in rows, we just need to lightly cover the entire bed. I'm going to use some Pro Mix here. Should have mentioned this earlier, but tip number 4, put your carrot covering soil in a dog's bucket and your carrots will germinate a lot better. Even if it is a slightly faded dog's bucket, it'll work much better than a Tennessee bucket. So we're just going to take some of this Pro Mix and just lightly cover these seeds. Alright, so that's what it looks like when we're done. Now we need to do the exact same thing in these 2 other beds. I think I'll put my Yellowstone carrots in this bed and then our Dragon Purple carrots in that one over there. And just like that, we're done. So I'll take a little hand nozzle and soak these beds pretty well here in a minute, and then probably come back out here later this afternoon and soak them again. So for the next 7 to 10 days, we want all 3 of these beds to kind of have that dark color that wet soil tends to have. Now, I wouldn't recommend planting carrots if you're going out of town or going on vacation soon after planting them. But if you are, one thing you can do is cover the bed. So you could put a piece of cardboard over these round raised beds. You could put a piece of plastic over these round raised beds to preserve the moisture. So that's a good idea if you're going out of town, or maybe you're just not able to get out here and water them once or twice a day. The kicker with that, if you're going to cover the beds to retain the moisture, you got to check on them pretty regularly, because once those carrots start sprouting, you're going to want to take that cover off. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a bunch of yellow carrot sprouts. And back to tip number 2 here. Another reason we plant them so thick is we don't want to have to worry about weeds. We want those carrot sprouts to cover this entire bed and outcompete any weeds that try to emerge. Kind of like the same thing we've done with the Savannah mustard over here. We want complete soil coverage so no weeds can thrive. So if you haven't planted your carrots yet, hopefully those 3 tips are helpful. Now, one question we always get is, how far north can I still overwinter carrots? And that's a tough question for me to answer because I've never lived anywhere but Georgia. So if you're north of us and you do overwinter carrots, please put that in the comments below. That way some of the beginner gardeners out there can see if they can pull it off in their area. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. Don't forget to check out our affiliate links and coupon codes in the description below, and also go check out our website, lazydogfarm.com. You can find that Coop Grow fertilizer and the AgriThrive fertilizer that we'll be using on these carrots. And if you want to see some of those carrots that we just planted at harvest time, check out this video right here from a couple years ago in the in-ground garden, where we compare Miami and Bolero carrots along with several other varieties. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.